You did not come across this by sheer chance. You were led here to receive it. There is an eternal difference between stumbling onto a message and stepping into an appointed moment, my child. And I need you to understand that before we speak another word. When you stumble upon something, it is accidental. It fades from your mind before the day ends. It washes over you and leaves no trace behind. But when you receive an appointment from heaven, it was written into your story before your first breath. Your name was sealed upon it by a Father who does not waver. When an appointed word reaches your heart, it takes root. It does not wash away. It remains. This is not luck. You did not simply wander across this screen today. Consider everything that was competing for your focus right now. Every alert, every chaotic headline, every endless scroll fighting for your mind. Yet your thumb paused right here. You stayed. That is not an algorithm making a random choice. That is a divine door that was prepared days ago, and I have been watching to see if you would possess the courage to step through it. Some of you stopped because the warning caught your breath. You saw words that made your spirit tighten before you even pressed play. You saw an urgent statement that said, ignoring this truth could cause everything around you to unravel. And beneath that, staring directly into your soul, was that heavy, startling phrase. I will bring judgment on those who turn away. Something inside you trembled. You wondered, is this truly how God speaks? Is he waiting in anger to punish me the moment I look away? My child, I will not water down the truth just to give you temporary comfort, but I will never allow you to accept a false image of me built on human fear. Hear my heart clearly today, not through the distortion of guilt or anxiety. I am not sitting on a distant throne with anger in my eyes, waiting for you to fail so I can bring destruction down upon you. That is not my character. That has never been who I am. Yet I am not an indifferent father who watches my children walk blindly past the very breakthrough meant to save them while remaining silent. The warning you encountered is real, and the cost of turning away is real. But that cost is entirely different from what your fear assumes. By the time I finish speaking to you today, you will see why those words had to be spoken with such urgency, and you will never see your trials the same way again. There is a sacred truth I have kept for this exact hour, something meant specifically for those ready to listen. Stay close, because if you rush ahead, you will miss the foundation that makes it all clear. Let me take you back to a dry wilderness called Rephidim in Exodus 17. I had delivered my people from centuries of slavery with an outstretched arm. I tore the sea open so they could walk on dry ground while their oppressors were swept away. I sent bread from heaven to feed them every single sunrise, unearned and overflowing. Yet when they stood in the parched desert with cracked lips and heard their children weeping from thirst, panic overcame them. They turned on Moses and cried out, asking why they were brought into the wilderness to die. Picture the heat rising from the barren earth. Picture the utter despair of a parent watching their child grow too weak to speak. I told Moses to take the staff, the very staff that parted the waters, and walk before the people to the rock at Horeb. I told him, strike the rock and water will burst forth so the people may live. The provision was not miles away. The living water was sealed inside the very stone they were staring at, waiting for obedience to release it. When Moses struck that rock, a torrential river poured into the desert before an exhausted, doubting nation. Now hear what many fail to understand. The tragedy was never my wrath striking them down. The tragedy was those who stayed paralyzed inside their tents, too bitter, too weary, or too doubtful to walk the few hundred feet toward the gushing river. That is what turning away truly means. It is dying of thirst in the shadow of your own miracle simply because you refuse to step forward and receive it. I am not threatening you. I am calling you out of the tent of fear. There is living water breaking loose in your life right now, and I will not let you wither in silence while your deliverance flows nearby. Comment the word "delivered" below right now. Not because heaven requires text on a screen, but because your spirit needs the act of declaring your faith openly today. Now let me tell you about a woman named Catherine from Charlotte, North Carolina. For months, she carried a physical pain and an overwhelming medical diagnosis that kept her awake in the dark at 3 in the morning, weeping on her living room floor while her family slept, whispering prayers that felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling. She had an upcoming procedure she was convinced would mark the end of her strength. Her fear told her to cancel, to hide, to retreat into despair. But her sister reminded her that faith is not the absence of trembling. It is stepping forward while your hands still shake. Catherine went to that hospital room, praying broken, quiet words from Psalm 34. When the medical team ran the final scans before the operation, the specialist walked in, bewildered, holding the imaging up to the light. The complication had vanished without a trace. The doctor admitted there was no medical rationale for what had changed overnight. Catherine walked out of that hospital in her own clothes, weeping tears of pure awe. I did not move because her prayer was poetic. I moved because she refused to let fear keep her inside the tent. She walked toward the rock. If you are standing in a place of waiting, comment the number 717 below as a sign that you are stepping out of fear and claiming the same living God over your circumstances.
Do not let the enemy convince you that Catherine's miracle was an isolated event meant for someone else, my child. The same hand that cleared that hospital room is hovering over your exact circumstances today. I need to take you deeper into what true positioning looks like because some of you are staring down obstacles so enormous that you feel completely outnumbered and completely unqualified to face tomorrow. I want you to remember Gideon in the book of Judges. When the Midianite armies covered the valley like a swarm of locusts, stripping the land of every single resource until my people had nothing left, Gideon was not standing on a mountain with a sword in his hand. He was hiding down in a winepress, secretly threshing out a tiny bit of wheat just to survive another day, paralyzed by terror. Yet the very first word I spoke to him in that dark pit was not coward. I called him a mighty warrior of valor. I have never named my children according to the weakness they currently feel. I name them according to the purpose I have already established before the foundation of the world. Gideon gathered an army of 32,000 men, ready to wage war on human terms. But I looked at that massive crowd and told him, "You have too many soldiers. If you conquer the enemy with an army this large, you will boast in your own strength and forget that deliverance comes only from the Lord." I commanded him to let every single man who is afraid pack up and return home. 22,000 men turned their backs and walked away in an instant. 10,000 remained, and still I told Gideon, "It is too many." I led them down to the water's edge to test their vigilance. The vast majority dropped to their knees, buried their faces entirely into the water, and drank carelessly, blind to everything happening around them. But 300 men remained alert. They knelt on one knee, cupped the cool water in their hands, brought it to their mouths, and kept their eyes fixed on the horizon, ready for battle at a second's notice. With those 300 watchful souls, I shattered an entire empire without them ever lifting a single human weapon. That is the exact posture I am calling you into right now in the middle of this message. The warning that ignoring this truth could make everything fall apart was never about a threat from my throne. It was about the dangerous posture of the 22,000 who gave in to their anxiety, and the 9,700 who buried their heads in distraction and lost their assignment. You are not meant to drown in distraction while your breakthrough is being formed. Hit the like button on this message right where you are sitting, not for metrics, but as a physical act of agreement that you are standing with the 300, alert, awake, and expectant for what is about to shift in your favor. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus and his wife Elena living in Savannah, Georgia. For over 4 long years, they lived under the crushing weight of a business failure and crippling debt that left them staring at overdue notices every single morning. Marcus told me in the quiet of his car, when no one else was listening, that the hardest part was not the lack of money. It was the suffocating shame that made him feel like he had failed his family. Every month felt like a dry desert with no rain in sight. But Elena reminded him of Hebrews 11:1, that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. They made a covenant to stop complaining in their tent and to start praying together every night at 9 o'clock, kneeling on their living room carpet, speaking life over dry ground. Month after month, nothing shifted visibly on the surface. But in the 5th month, a quiet connection they had made 2 years prior suddenly reached out with an opportunity that restored everything they had lost within a matter of weeks. Their deliverance did not arrive overnight like Catherine's. It arrived through persistent, unyielding posture while their eyes stayed focused on heaven. Type the words "standing ready" in the comments right now if you refuse to let weariness rob you of the promise waiting on the other side of this test. Take a moment right now and share this message with that one person who came to your heart the moment I mentioned the battle in the valley. You know who they are. They are fighting their own silent war, and your obedience to send this could be the very staff that parts their sea today. Do not mistake the quietness of your current season for absence, my child. The same God who directed the steps of Marcus and Elena through 5 long months of silence is orchestrating details behind your closed doors that you cannot yet see. Now, I need to bring you to another battlefield in Scripture, because there is a very specific type of loss that does not come from outright defeat, but from a hesitation that delays your obedience. Look at the book of Judges, chapter 4, in the story of Deborah and Barak. For 20 agonizing years, the people of Israel were oppressed by King Jabin and his commander Sisera, an army fortified with 900 iron chariots that terrorized every valley and village. Deborah, a prophetess leading with wisdom and authority, sent a direct command from heaven to Barak, instructing him to take 10,000 men to Mount Tabor, because the Lord would hand Sisera's entire army into his hands. Yet Barak looked at the promise, looked at the iron chariots, and let fear negotiate his response. He told Deborah that if she went with him, he would go, but if she refused to walk beside him, he would not move an inch. Even with a guaranteed victory promised directly from my mouth, he could not step out without relying on human reassurance. Deborah looked at him and delivered a truth that should echo in your spirit today. The victory would still come, but the honor of taking down Sisera would not belong to Barak. It would be given into the hands of a woman named Jael. Barak still won the battle, but the fullness of the reward that had his name written on it was forfeited simply because he hesitated when he should have marched. That is the 3rd layer of the warning that brought you to this message. The danger of turning away is not that my purpose will fail. It is that hesitation causes you to miss the personal assignment and the specific blessing that was prepared entirely for you. I do not want you to live in the regret of what could have been. Comment the word unwavering below right now as a clear signal that you are casting off hesitation and choosing immediate obedience over fearful delay. Now let me tell you about a woman named Joanna from Austin, Texas, whose journey looks very different from Catherine's sudden miracle and Marcus's 5-month turnaround. Joanna walked through what she called her season of absolute collapse, a sudden betrayal followed by months of crippling emotional darkness where getting out of bed felt like lifting the weight of the entire world. There were days she sat on her kitchen floor, unable to speak, weeping until no tears were left, wondering if her life had any purpose remaining. Her healing did not come in a single morning, nor did it arrive in a sudden windfall. Joanna's restoration is happening day by day, layer by layer, through professional guidance, steady support from faithful friends who refuse to leave her side, and a simple commitment to hold on to Psalm 27:14, waiting on the Lord and letting her heart be strengthened in the middle of the process. If you are standing in a season like Joanna's, where the road is still ongoing and the final chapter has not yet resolved. Know that your process is not a sign of abandonment. You are being rebuilt from the foundation up, and my presence is just as heavy in your quiet endurance as it is in a dramatic miracle. If your spirit is sensing a prompting right now, an urge to honor this word and back your invisible faith with a concrete action, you have the opportunity to sow a seed through the Super Thanks button below. This is never a transaction, nor can heaven's favor ever be bought with silver or gold. It is simply an act of physical alignment that declares your confidence in what God is cultivating in your life during the storm. If you are led, take that step in faith, and if not, remain steadfast in this space, knowing your standing before me is completely secure. Now, my child, look at how every single thread of this message weaves together into a tapestry of undeniable purpose for your life today. We have come full circle from the very moment you hesitated before pressing play, staring at those sharp, arresting words that warned you not to turn away. You now understand that the warning was never a threat of wrath poured out upon you from an angry judge. It was the fierce, protective voice of a father pleading with you not to sit frozen in your tent of fear, while the river of living water roars only footsteps away at Rephidim. It was the urgent call to awaken you from the careless slumber of the 9,700, pulling you into the vigilant posture of the 300 who kept their eyes locked on the horizon. It was the loving reminder that hesitation, just like Barak's delay at Mount Tabor, will only rob you of the full measure of honor and victory that was carved out with your name on it from the beginning of time. You have walked through 3 distinct testimonies tonight, and every single one represents a different road of my faithfulness. You saw Catherine's sudden overnight deliverance, where the impossible evaporated in an instant. You witnessed Marcus and Elena's 5 months of disciplined, unyielding faith on a quiet living room rug before the closed door finally swung wide open. And you stood alongside Joanna in her ongoing journey, discovering that even when the healing is slow, tender, and still unfolding, my strength is perfected right there on the kitchen floor in the middle of the quietest surrender. None of those paths are greater than the others, but all of them required one non-negotiable step: the decision to refuse defeat, to leave the tent, and to walk directly toward the rock. You did not skip this word. You did not let distraction drag you under. Your spirit remained alert, and that decision alone proves that you belong among the chosen few who are ready to carry this breakthrough into reality. Tap the subscribe button right now on this screen, not to elevate a platform, but to plant your spiritual flag and ensure that when the next appointed word is released for your season, you will be standing in position with your lamps trimmed and burning brightly. Type the number 717 and the word "delivered" one final time in the comments below as your permanent seal upon everything that was spoken over your mind, your health, your home, and your future today. If your heart is still whispering to you to step out and sow a seed of faith through the Super Thanks button, do not let hesitation snatch that moment away from you. Let your generosity be a bold proclamation that you trust the Lord of the harvest far more than the resources currently in your hands. Now, take this fire and share it with that one specific soul you have been carrying in your prayers all week long. Become the messenger who pulls them out of their own dry wilderness today. Step out of this moment and carry this unshakable peace into your home, into your workplace, into every difficult phone call, and into every silent room where fear once tried to rule your heart. The wilderness is behind you. The dry ground has yielded its river, and your season of restoration begins right now.